Hello everyone, Ryan here. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about 5 of my favorite classic books. That's right, classic books. They're called a classic for a reason. Mostly because they happen to shed a little light on the human condition, which in my opinion is always a good thing. Though some may not agree with me, but hey, we're all entitled to our opinions, right? So, first one is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. If you have not read this yet, I do highly recommend it. I also recommend it if you haven't read any of Steinbeck's work at all. This is a pretty good place to start, and plus it's not that long. Essentially, it's about these two characters named George and Lenny. And I'll just read the synopsis here for you. They're an unlikely pair. George is small and quick and dark of face. Lenny, a man of tremendous size, has the mind of a young child. Yet they have formed a family, clinging together in the face of loneliness and alienation. Laborers in California's dusty vegetable fields, they hustle work when they can, living a hand-to-mouth existence. For George and Lenny have a plan: to own an acre of land and a shack they can call their own. When they land jobs on a ranch in the Salinas Valley, the fulfillment of their dream seems to be within their grasp. But even George cannot guard Lenny from the provocations of a flirtatious woman, nor predict the consequences of Lenny's unswerving obedience to the things George taught him. So there you go, that's a fairly accurate synopsis of Mice and Men. Without getting into too much detail, I will say that the ending itself, or rather the ending alone, is worth reading this. It's very touching. I would say it's definitely one of the most touching endings I've read in any book, even some of your much more thicker books. Yeah, it's just, especially the first time I read it, to me it just seemed like it came out of nowhere. Yeah, it's, again, I highly recommend it. I believe everybody should read this at least once in their lifetime. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. So, next one is Walden and Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. I consider myself somewhat of a fan of Thoreau's work, especially Walden. Of course, Walden is based on his experience in which he lived in the woods for a while. He built his own cabin, or rather actually he purchased this kind of like shack out in the woods, and then he kind of added on to it, refurbished it somewhat, and he lived in this cabin for a period of 2 years, I believe no more than 2 years. And of course he grew his own vegetables, and I believe the only other thing he ate the whole time might have been rice and some other kind of grain. And then of course during the whole time he had all these different insights into things like materialism, society, existence, life. Well, I mean life and existence in general. And then of course at the time, or during his lifetime, that was around when the Industrial Revolution was just starting to take hold, and I guess you could say the first factories were being constructed and put into use. And he, I guess you could say he really didn't like the way he saw society going. He didn't like that everybody was starting to become cramped into much smaller living quarters in small apartments and whatnot, and so he was very much against that. And for the most part, I guess he was referred to as a transcendentalist, also a naturalist. A very interesting guy. I feel as though I have a lot in common with him. And then, of course, Civil Disobedience is mostly about his belief that he believed that all individuals have the right to protest over anything for any cause, especially if there are many injustices taking place, going on unchecked and whatnot. So I highly recommend it. Walden, Civil Disobedience, Henry J. wrote. And next one is another one by Steinbeck, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. Grapes of Wrath. This is obviously a lot thicker than Of Mice and Men. I've only read this once, and it was quite some time ago. I believe sometime back in high school. And of course, I wasn't that much into reading in high school. Though, I mean, what high school kid is. So I've also seen the movie adaptation, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I believe the movie was originally came out sometime in the 50s or 60s, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's essentially about during the time of the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression. A lot of farmers were losing their land, and a lot of people were unemployed and forced to take a lot of these ridiculously low-paying jobs, picking crops, working in the fields. Actually, it's an interesting parallel, I feel. A very interesting parallel. You consider that today crop picking and working in the fields is synonymous with what we would call immigrants or illegal immigrants. Because there was a time in this country when everybody was working in the fields, picking crops. And yeah, I don't know. Of course, that's just one aspect of this book that I find interesting. One aspect of American history that I find intriguing and fascinating. So this is another book that I do recommend reading at least once in your lifetime. Grapes of Wrath. Next one is a collection of poetry by Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. Walt Whitman is definitely my favorite poet. Not that I don't like other poets, not that I don't have other favorite poets, but for me, I keep coming back to Leaves of Grass, especially when it comes to writing my own original poems, short stories, and other stuff. I always find some kind of inspirational thing within Leaves of Grass, and I'll just go ahead and read a random excerpt for you here. Let's see. Alright. So this is called Give Me the Splendid Silent Sun. Give me the splendid silent sun with all his beams full dazzling. Give me juicy autumnal fruit ripe and red from the orchard. Give me a field where the unmowed grass grows. Give me an arbor. Give me the trellis grape. Give me fresh corn and wheat. Give me serene moving animals teaching content. Give me nights perfectly quiet as on high plateaus west of the Mississippi, and I looking up at the stars. Give me odorous at sunrise a garden of beautiful flowers where I can walk undisturbed. Give me for marriage a sweet-breathed woman of whom I should never tire. So yeah, of course that poem's much longer, but that's just an excerpt. Again, Walt Whitman is another good example of a writer or artist who wasn't appreciated during his lifetime, because Leaves of Grass, when it was first published, I believe it was sometime in 1850s, maybe 1860s. People didn't really understand Leaves of Grass. They didn't get it. The only one who really did was another guy, transcendentalist guy, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And but yeah, if you're looking to start with something really, I don't know what's the word, transcendent, I would definitely recommend Leaves of Grass. Uh, it's not a bad place to start with poetry. So last but not least is Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Of course, I know everybody knows about this, and I know a lot of people might consider Mark Twain to be, or rather his work, well, both Mark Twain and or his work, to be overtly racist. But I mean, he wrote about the time that he lived in, which unfortunately happened to be an overtly racist, prejudiced time. So, I mean, I don't know, can't really fault him for that, I think. And it also doesn't negate the fact that, both Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn are well-written works of literature. So, I don't know. If you haven't read it yet, it's another one that I recommend reading at least once. So, in fact, maybe I can pass it through here. All right. Right here. There you go. Right there. There. All right. Who knows how long it'll be before technology advances to that point, right? Where we can pass books through a camera or anything for that matter. I don't know. So that'll do it for this video. Of course, these aren't all my favorite classic books, but just five of them. So thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody who's currently subscribed. I definitely appreciate it. I believe I might be at about 70 something, or close to 80, maybe a little over 80 after I post this. I don't know. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you. So, yeah. Until next time, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.